Hello. Welcome, everybody, back to Creating Community. My name is Eileen Richardson, and I am the host. And today, my guest is Frankie Driscoll Miller, and he is the volunteer recruitment manager at Big Brothers Big Sisters in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Welcome, Frankie.
Hi, thank you so much for having us on today.
So, would you explain a little bit about Big Brothers Big Sisters nationally, maybe a little bit of a history and what the goals are for the organization?
Absolutely. Big Brothers Big Sisters is actually 121 years old as of 2025. It's a nonprofit organization that provides mentoring programs to children and youth, generally who face adversity, poverty, family issues, school issues, peer conflict, and social isolation, social stresses. The organization tries to pair these children with volunteer mentors who serve as positive role models for them and offer guidance, support, and friendship. The overall goal is to help children reach their full potential, whatever form that may come in. So the history is back in 1904, the founder, Ernst Kent Coulter, was a court clerk in New York City, and he noticed an abundance of young men coming through his courts who clearly needed guidance, and they were going down paths that were going to lead them to crime, alcoholism, bad family dynamics. So he recognized that caring adults could positively mentor these young men and these young boys. And so he set out to find volunteers. And that marked the beginning of what was known as Big Brothers of New York City. By 1916, it had expanded to almost 100 cities across the country. At the same time, there was a group called Ladies of Charity who were performing the same services, but for young women and young girls. And eventually, I believe it was 1977, these two groups would combine into one, and that's where we get Big Brothers Big Sisters. So they operated separately until the late 70s. That brings us to Big Brothers Big Sisters Mountain Region, which is the organization that I work for. And that was founded by Sam Baca here in Santa Fe in 1979. He also worked with Pam Najowski and Deborah Douglas, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a few names of other people that were gracious enough to help start the program. But those were the central community leaders that brought Big Brothers Big Sisters into Santa Fe, which now we are Big Brothers Big Sisters Mountain Region. We cover not only Santa Fe, Espanola, and Los Alamos, but also 8 other counties in the state that include Dona Ana, Grant, Luna, Rio Arriba, McKinley, San Miguel, Mora, and Taos. So what started as an organization just in Santa Fe has now spread across the northern part of the state, but also southern New Mexico and western New Mexico, and even parts of Arizona.
Thank you. That was very great history lesson we just got. Very well done. How is the mountain region perhaps a little bit different than any of the other national organizations?
So that's a great question. First off is the huge geographic area that we provide services to. Most of the time, the affiliates or organizations are generally based in a county or a city or maybe 1 or 2 counties, whereas we cover 11. Now, obviously, a lot of that has to do with the fact that New Mexico has such a low population density across most of the state. There are 2 affiliates in New Mexico. So there's Mountain Region and then there's Central Region, which is Albuquerque and surrounding counties of central New Mexico. But right off the bat, we clearly cover a diverse set of communities. We range from Santa Fe to Las Cruces, to Espanola, to Taos, all the way out to Gallup. So we're servicing different communities that have different backgrounds, ethnic-wise, economically, socioeconomically. So that's one of the big differences between us and a lot of the other affiliates across the country is the large geographic area that we provide services to, and then the different socioeconomic communities that we provide services to. We provide three types of mentoring opportunities. So every affiliate is going to have different types of mentoring programs. For example, some have group mentoring programs or online mentoring programs, but we offer what is called community-based mentoring, pardon me, which is we match a big, somebody 18 or older, with a little, aged 5 to 17, and they spend 4 to 6 hours a month in the community with one another. So they can go hiking, they can go out to eat, they go watch movies, they go to art, they go watch shows. I have a little myself, and we do all of those things. So we just make sure that we're spending that quality one-on-one time together out in the community, immersing ourselves in the community and experiencing what the community has to offer. We also have school-based mentoring, which is great for people who maybe don't have the time to schedule with a little over the weekends or outside of work hours. And school-based mentoring is essentially, as a big, you go and visit your little at their school for 1 hour a week. We also call it the lunch buddy program. So generally you'll go and have lunch with them and then spend an hour with them at their school. That's a great program for people who maybe have a lot of extracurricular activities in their daily life, and that 4 to 6 hours a month of making plans in the community might seem a little bit daunting, or they might feel a little bit too stretched. And then we have our high school bigs program, which is where we match high school aged individuals with littles from a local elementary school. And they go once a week as a group to spend time with their littles at the elementary school. So in Santa Fe, I lead the high school program with Capital High School. And so we have 20 high schoolers that go and meet up with 20 kids at Cesar Chavez, which is right down the street, every Wednesday for an hour. And we set goals with each other. We give them time to play games. We give them time to play sports with one another. We give them time to do art, whatever works, just so that they can spend that quality time for an hour. It's great for the high schoolers because they can cross off a lot of their community service goals. And it's great for the elementary schoolers because they have that real feeling older brother, older sister that's still within kind of that age range. Yeah. So all three programs are extremely beneficial to the community. All three programs are in need of volunteers at any given point. But those are the three that we offer here in the Mountain region. And like I said, it's not the same between every organization. I would say that's the biggest difference between us and other affiliates is the big geographic area that we work with and the programs that we offer.
Yeah, well, thank you. One thing that I do know for a fact, because I was involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters, I work there in the development department, and then I also have been a big for two littles. And one of the things I do remember was that some of the very hard to reach areas Native Americans live, and that happens to be a very much needed area for some of these children. And is that kind of unique to New Mexico as well? Or because it's such go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's certainly unique
remote,
to New Mexico. Yeah. Remote, well, the remoteness of it, and also working with tribal governments and tribal authority. We can't just go in and set up shop. We have to work in conjunction with the individual tribes. And so that's actually something that we are constantly looking to improve upon. So essentially for these remote areas, and there's a reason why not every community in New Mexico can be served, we basically have to have a program specialist that works in those areas.
Yeah.
So, for example, there are some counties in eastern New Mexico that don't have program specialists from either Mountain Region or Central, because we don't have funding, in large part, to hire program specialists for those areas, or it's so remote and the population is so low that there hasn't been enough interest generated in those areas yet. And that does relate back to our Native American communities. They are many times remote. They often don't know that these programs are available, but then there's also the barriers that we need to go through of working with their local governments to make sure that it's appropriate that we're offering services for them, and that everybody is in agreement with that.
Sure. So is the mountain region one of their goals to cover the entire state eventually?
So because there's two affiliates, I think that the more realistic goal would be that mountain region and central region would merge,
Oh,
which is a possibility in the foreseeable future. I think that the general consensus among many people in mountain region and central is that it would be great to combine resources, and that we may be able to cover more of New Mexico if we're working in tandem with one another.
oh, I hope
So,
sounds like a
yeah,
good goal. Oh, and hopefully it
yeah,
comes
well,
true.
yeah, I think that at this point, we're probably closer to that happening than in years past. So
Okay.
we're in a transitional period right now with Big Brothers Big Sisters. Our CEO, David Sherman, who did a great job for the past 7 years, stepped down a few months ago. So we have an interim CEO, Gina Trujillo, who's doing a fantastic job. But I think that right now they're exploring options to possibly merge at some point.
Wow.
And I think that that's seen as potentially a really big positive for the state and
Oh,
for Big Brothers Big Sisters as an organization.
me too. It sounds like a great goal and a great thing for the state of New Mexico. How many kids in the mountain region, kids and mentors, are in the mountain region?
So we have 339 active matches right now, which we're extremely proud of, but
That's a good
I
number.
would say isn't even half the capacity of where we would like to be. There was a time not long ago pre-COVID where I believe that the numbers were closer to 1,000. Now, when COVID came, that dismantled a lot of the relationships that had been formed,
Sure.
and we've been trying to recover those numbers. It's a challenge right now. There's many reasons for that. One of the main reasons I think is that when there's times of economic, social, or political turmoil, I think people tend to focus, and understandably so, on their blood families, their paychecks, paying bills, making sure that everything is covered. And I don't think that there's nothing wrong with that at all. What we're trying to do right now is create an atmosphere where we help people recognize that volunteering with us is not meant to be a stress. It's not meant to take away from your life at all. It's not meant to take away from your ability to provide or to cause any sort of extra mental work. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an
And
enjoyable 4 to 6 hours a month with somebody that shares common interest with you. So we're working hard to get those numbers back up. I think that we're making some great strides. We have a more consistent staff right now throughout all 11 counties than we've had in several years,
good.
and where everybody's really, rolling up their sleeves and trying to bring us back and hopefully even surpass at some point what we considered great success in the past in Mountain Region. I do believe that there's an air of confidence that we're on the up and up, and that we're making those strides.
Well, you just addressed exactly why I decided to start this podcast, and that is because, and I do believe COVID is a big contributor, but I do feel that in the United States that there's so many communities that were thriving, and they are not now, and as a result, the children, in my opinion, suffer the most. Because they don't have the experience of mentors or maybe even their grandma anymore, or it's a little bit of fear that still hangs on and people aren't reaching outside their own little circle. And you mentioned it really well, that that's probably why you're not getting the number of volunteers and maybe even kids. So one of the purposes of this is to get the word out that you guys are looking for volunteers and children, and you are looking for improving the community with mentorship. And we'll keep talking a little bit about that, because my next question is, how does a mentor and a child get set up? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of people, well, one first thing is it's a fairly extensive process to get matched. I think there's a misconception that as an organization, if you say, hey, I want to volunteer, that means that day you're going to walk in and be matched with a little, and you become their big, and it's off to a running start, and you get to hang out immediately and start having fun and start experiencing your community together. And that's not exactly the case. It's a thorough process. So once we have interest from a volunteer, same as interest from a little, we'll interview the potential big. It's an extensive interview, can sometimes take an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we will do background checks. There's a lengthy application that you have to fill out. We do our due diligence. We make sure that the bigs that we are, or potential bigs that we're interviewing, are good role models, that they're going to be beneficial to the life of a little, and that they don't have a history of anything that could potentially put a little in harm's way. So that means that it can be a 3-month process sometimes from starting your application to getting matched. For littles, if a parent or a guardian is interested in signing up their little, it's slightly less of a initial burden. The application process is a little bit less involved. The interview process is a little bit less involved as well. Once we interview bigs and littles, we then will analyze the data and information that we've gotten from them, and we will try to make matches based on compatibility of interests, of if there's preferences for religious backgrounds. If somebody wants to work directly with an LGBTQ youth, we will try to match them with somebody that would make sense with. If there is somebody that is Catholic that wants to be matched with another person that's Catholic or comes from a Catholic family, we'll try to make that work. We don't discriminate against anyone. So, if you're a person that wouldn't feel comfortable spending time with an LGBTQ youth, we're not going to match you with somebody that comes from that community.
Yeah.
And we feel confident in saying that we want to match everybody with what they feel comfortable with, because that bears the best results. Generally speaking, the big factors that we kind of analyze are, what are the common interests that they may have with one another, so that when they're spending time together, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I was interviewing, I like sports, I like video games, and I like being outside sometimes. So my little, we do all three of those things together. We go outside and play. We sometimes will play video games together. We'll go out to eat because we both like trying new restaurants. We're very compatible. We have the same interests. So, that time goes by quickly when we're spending it with one another, and we're able to build that trust faster. So after you go through that application process, we're going to, if you're a prospective big, we're going to look at all the littles that we have available, and we're going to try to find the best little possible, or what we view as the best little possible, to create the best chemistry for both people involved in the match and to the comfort of the little's family. Once we find a potential match, we will then have what we call, first we'll find a potential match and then speak to the big and little individually, describe the person kind of in generic detail, and say, does this sound like somebody that you might feel comfortable being matched with? If both parties say yes, then we bring them together for a match meeting, which is a supervised visit where they'll spend an hour together, an hour and a half. And during the match meeting, we will let the big and little kind of spend 30 minutes together playing games, talking, feeling one another out to see if it's comfortable. And after the match meeting, the program manager or the program specialist, which is kind of our title for caseworkers in this example, will then speak to the little and speak to the big and say, does this feel right? do you think that you would want to move forward with this? And if both parties are in agreement, then they will sign a match agreement contract, which generally we ask for a year commitment from the bigs and the littles. We certainly don't want bigs to be dedicating their time and then have a little drop out of the program. So the expectation is that if you say yes, that you're part of this program for a year and that you follow guidelines that we provide for you. But essentially, the main focus is to put a big and a little together that are both going to benefit from the relationship. As a mentor, it's simple to say, you want feelings of gratification. You want to feel as though you're making a difference in your community, and
Exactly.
you want to see that tangible process play out, which you get. And with a little, you want that extra support. And a lot of our littles come from very stable, nice homes that have two parents, and there's not issues with domestic violence or drug abuse or anything like that. They might just not get enough attention from an older adult who can objectively look at their life and give them guidance without casting judgment.
Yeah.
And so that's the real benefit of these littles having a big, is they can speak to an older person who really is only supposed to show love and respect at all times, and there is no expectation. And we certainly discourage bigs from any type of discipline or shaming or anything that would hurt a child's ego and, not enable them to find their full potential, whether that be in school, athletics, social life, things of that nature.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that most of the families seem to be intact, for one thing, and in a very healthy mental, physical relationship with their family. But I just thought of an example where this could happen to anybody. Some fathers may not potentially have any interest in sports, and the kid might just be gaga over sports. And he would like to have somebody that he discusses sports with, maybe plays games with, plays outdoor stuff, and maybe his dad isn't up to it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these kids are, almost on the streets and are being saved from any type of harm in any way. So it's very, it goes across the board for all socioeconomic families. I can see that. And the other thing I wanted to say was, when you describe the whole process, I hope those viewers that are either considering being a big or considering having one of their children a little, that they realize how intense and purposeful all the interviews are, the matching process, the checking out background, that it's extremely safe. And being a part of it myself, I can attest to that I felt like I was definitely given a choice of my littles, and they were given a choice of me. And I had a blast. I just had a blast with the kids. And I've got a lot of older kids myself, so they're all out of the home. So for me, it was fulfilling having a little kid around again, and that was very joyful and very rewarding in my sense. So I just wanted to.
And that's the whole point. Thank you. No, thank you. And I don't think I was aware that you had multiple littles before this. So thank you very much for contributing to your community and to our organization. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And that's absolutely the point. One thing I do want to address is, while it is an intensive process, we try to make it as simple as possible for the volunteers and the families of the little. So while there's background checks, we pay for any cost of background checks. There's a fingerprint clearance that you have to do. We schedule it for you. We pay for it.
Okay.
A lot of times when volunteers are frustrated with how long the process is taking, sometimes it's the faster that you return paperwork to us, the faster that you return emails and phone calls, the faster that we get you processed.
Sure.
So, if you're going to take that leap and say, this sounds like something I'm really interested in, we're going to work as fast as we can to find you the best match possible. But there's an expectation where if you're not providing the information that we need, or you're not returning emails, phone calls, things like that, it might take a little bit longer. So
Sure.
Sometimes I notice that a lot of the frustration which is understandable. But, speaking as somebody that I think that it took me 2 months to get matched, but I also made sure, I work for the company, which makes it a little bit more accessible to me, but I made sure to hit every deadline I possibly could. So if you're interested in volunteering and you want to avoid those longer stretches of time, I would say just lock in
Stay on
and for
top of
about
it.
a week.
Yep.
Yeah, just make sure that you're locked in. And, after you get matched, there is still some work. There's match support. For the first 3 months, you'll speak to a program specialist once a month about how the match is going. They will offer you support. They will offer you advice. They will offer you resources if you feel as though the match isn't going the way that you want. And then it's once every 3 months, but that match support is always available to you. So if I'm meeting with my little and I feel as though the chemistry is feeling off, they're not opening up to me, or they don't seem to be having fun, we provide the resources to call and speak with your program specialist whenever you need, really, and say, what do you think I can do about this? Or how can I help? Or how can I help this situation? So it's a firm commitment. But it's 1 hour maybe of match support, not even a month. And then the longer that you're matched, that dissipates. And then the rest of it is having fun with your little.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to get you to immediately, is once we find that good match and it seems as though it's going to work, we want the big and the little to be able to enjoy one another's company as quickly as possible.
Right.
And that's what we want the main focus to be. Now, you do set goals. So, with my little, one of his goals is to become more comfortable in social situations. So when we are out in public and, he doesn't struggle speaking with adults outside of the fact that he's shy. So I just try to work with him on, hey, you can feel confident while you're talking to this adult, and you can feel confident ordering your own food at the restaurant and things of that nature. So while we, the focus is let's go have fun, let's go enjoy each other's time, it is important as the big to always remember that there are goals that you want to accomplish with your little and that you want to specifically support them with. So it's an involved process to get involved with. I think that it becomes less time consuming once you get all of your application info done. Time consuming might not be the right word. It becomes less work intensive. Once you get the initial application process done, then it becomes fun intensive.
Well, thank you for bringing up, Frankie. Thank you for bringing up the goals, because that is something I just remembered and I didn't express it. It's not all about having fun, although that's, I think, 95% of it. But at least that was my experience. But the thing is having goals set, and I'm sure parents provide a part of that. And being, just realizing in a relationship, you do help each other grow. So whether it's a mentor and a child or what other relationships, if you're really into being with that person, you do want to help them grow. And that's a really good example. How do you recruit mentors? Is there a lack of mentors versus kids in this littles in the system, or is it pretty well?
Yeah, generally speaking, it's lack of volunteers, especially male volunteers.
Yeah.
But overall, just a lack of volunteers, which is something, the responsibility of that is largely on me. I was hired in June to try to kind of revitalize the volunteer recruitment efforts. And I think so far we've made some great strides, but I'll say I'm not reaching the goals that I see for Mountain Region. And I take a lot of responsibility for that. And
a lot of work to be done, huh?
And that's great. And I think that including myself, the people that I work with, we're ready to do that work, and we're ready to revitalize our organization in terms of recruiting not only littles. We want to serve as many children in our communities as we can, but we can't do our work without the volunteers. So the way right now that we mostly do volunteer recruitment is obviously advertisements. So we have radio ads locally in areas. We have physical ads that we put out in the community, whether it be in newsletters, papers, signs. And then so we go to pretty much every community event that you can think of, we are tabling at, trying to get the word out that we still exist. I think that a lot of the issues that we have stem from people simply not knowing that we exist.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get our brand name back out there. So we go to community events. We go into schools to recruit littles. We also go into schools to recruit bigs for our high school bigs program.
Sure.
I will give presentations at private businesses or social organizations. So if any of the listeners are part of a private business or social organization that want me to come in and give a presentation, we can do a 10-minute presentation, or we can do a lunch and learn where it's an hour long. We can provide lunch. Especially if there's a larger group of people that wants to get the presentation, but I'm willing to work with social organizations or community organizations or businesses to provide that presentation, whether it be, we have 10 minutes and then everybody's got to get back to work. Well, I'm not going to go a minute over 10, and I'm going to make sure that you get all the pertinent information that you need and all the contact information that you need if you have further questions. Or sometimes I'm up there for 40 minutes giving a presentation and answering questions. So we're happy to work that out either way with any of the communities in Santa Fe especially, but obviously in all the 11 counties that we work for. That's one way that we really are trying to recruit, is through organizations that are full of adults who could potentially be great volunteers. We run, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, I'm sure, but we run fundraising campaigns, which is also a great opportunity for recruitment. One thing I always stress to people is that it is fantastic to donate money. Please donate money if you can, but we cannot buy volunteers, nor do we want to. We want people to volunteer out of their own desire and out of their own confidence that they can help their community by a one-on-one mentoring program or engaging in a one-on-one mentoring program. So primarily how we recruit though is community events, going into organizations, advertisements, which I think we have started doing a really good job of that. Now a lot of this, it's on the, it's the responsibility of the community to reconcile with the fact that, we don't have enough people willing to invest a few hours a month of their time into a child that they don't know, which sounds very daunting. It does sound like a challenge. I don't know this child at all. Am I going to be responsible for their well-being? Am I going to be responsible for their life? And the answer is partially, but really the expectation is just that you improve the standard of their life, improve their confidence. We're not asking you to spend any money on them. There's no expectation that you are to spend any money. We provide match activities once a month that are at the cost of Big Brothers Big Sisters. So, for example, we're going to the Children's Museum in February, and we're going rock climbing hopefully in March. We've gone zip lining before. We do things like that, and that comes at the cost of us, so that you can enjoy that with your little, and it doesn't become a financial burden.
Yeah, I found those to be really fun. They had some really good Christmas ones and just different holidays. So we got a couple more minutes, Frankie. I just wanted to say, because my whole focus on this podcast is to bring in organizations and people such as yourself that really want to improve the community, how can you explain the relationships that develop in Big Brothers Big Sisters between a big and a little, and how it benefits the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, Santa Fe is a great example because there are a lot of adults in Santa Fe that are not from Santa Fe. They are not from New Mexico even. They come from anywhere else. For example, myself, I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. There is a divide right now, I think, between a lot of the local people in Santa Fe and then people who have moved here. And I think that a way to bridge that divide is spending time with one another. And I think a perfect way to do that in a non-confrontational manner is through a program like Big Brothers Big Sisters, where you're kind of challenging maybe preconceived notions or bias and making yourself a little bit exposed, or you're exposing yourself a little bit to different socioeconomic classes, different ethnicities, different religions. And you're saying, hey, maybe I have a better understanding of why communities are the way that they are, or why they face the challenges that they face, or why they need the resources that they need. So I think that those types of relationships are very common in Santa Fe and in the mountain region as a whole, where you're having people with pretty substantial generational and oftentimes economic divides spend time with one another and find the common ground to build that love, trust that you want in a community between everybody in it. So, on a macro level, that's how I would look at it. On a micro level, I think that we have people in their 60s or 70s hanging out with 10-year-olds. And I think that that's just fantastic for each of those individuals. Beyond the macro level of saying, hey, we're from two completely different generations. We're not blood related. We really have no relation other than we both wanted somebody to spend time with and wanted to grow as a person. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think that I know for me, I'm 33, my little's 10. We're not huge. We're not a huge age difference. But we do come from different walks of life. He has a very different experience growing up than I did. And it's not to say that it humbles me or that I feel pity or anything like that, but it gives me a lot of perspective into the benefits that I've had in life and what I can learn from another person and how I can use that in other aspects of my life. And I think it gives great perspective, and great feelings of confidence to everybody involved.
Yeah.
And, lastly, I don't think that it can be stressed enough that a lot of times if we ask a 60-year-old person what they think of kids these days, many times it's going to be a negative answer. And I genuinely think that's because they haven't gone out and spent time with a child these days, because I can guarantee you that a kid from 60 years ago is really not that different from a kid today.
No.
They're basically the same. Their environment may have changed, but their needs, their wants, their desires, their dreams are going to be pretty much in line with what somebody had when they were a child long ago. So I think that it just goes without saying that when you build those relationships between generations, between socioeconomic classes, it's going to benefit the community because it's going to bring that sense of tightness between one another that you maybe didn't
even
have.
Individually with a little, aren't there stats that say they do better in school, that they don't get involved in drugs? I mean, isn't that also a benefit?
Yeah, it's actually, I have some. So 90% are more likely to do well in school. So their grades go up directly because of their relationship with their mentor. It's just the feelings of confidence. It's being able to talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm struggling in math right now. I don't know what to do about it. Whereas a parent might say, well, you just need to pay attention more. You need to work harder, which is what's expected of a parent to say. But that an older friend or an older brother might say, well, is your teacher helping you enough? Or they might, are you specifically zoning out during one part? So it's just to give that other perspective of why somebody might be struggling. 46% are less likely to do drugs, which is a huge number. And anecdotally, I can completely believe that because I watch these matches grow. Our whole organization does. And a lot of those kids that are exposed to drugs and alcohol, especially in middle school and high school, they have that older person there to reassure them, hey, that's not worth your time.
Good choice.
It's not something that you want to do. And that almost 90% are less likely to make bad decisions. And what we measure as bad decisions are, that goes directly into drugs, but also skipping school, stealing, lying,
crying,
things of that nature. And these are self-reported from the littles themselves. So and then obviously there's data about the grades going up, but the littles themselves that partake in this program say with confidence that their life has improved. And I think that that's something to really look at and say, oh, the difference is being made. The littles themselves are saying this is worth my time.
I like that happy ending.
Yeah, me too.
So
that's what we're aiming for.
I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm going to just speak to the audience and let them know that if you have any inkling of improving your community, if you have any free time, if you have the passion to help children, big brothers, big sisters, whatever area you're in, hopefully there's one. If not, maybe you be the one who starts one. But now I'm going to give it to Frankie. Frankie, thank you so much for your time and for this interview and for getting the word out about such a wonderful organization. So this is a good opportunity and venue for you. So you just take it away and let us know what your last words are.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I won't take much more time. I just want to do a few shameless plugs. We have our signature fundraiser coming up, which is every single Big Brothers Big Sisters affiliate partakes in it, and it is our Bowl for Kids' Sake, which is a bowling fundraiser that we do once a year. The Santa Fe dates are April 9th and April 12th. I believe at April 9th it'll be at the Alley, and then April 12th it will be Cities at Gold. And just very quickly, the way that this works is it's a peer-to-peer fundraiser. So we ask you to create teams of 5 people, and each person raises $100. So it's a $500 buy-in for the team. Obviously, we encourage you to raise more money. If you don't have any interest in bowling, you can raise $100 and donate a spot so that we can invite our matches to participate, which is always great. So if you are just, I don't want to go bowling. Well, if you can raise $100 and send it to us, we will publicize, obviously, that you donated $100 to us, and we will make sure that somebody else gets to bowl for you. This is one of our biggest fundraisers of the year. It is a great way to bring the community together. I think that the theme this year is children's storybooks or children's books. So we do a different theme every year. People dress up in costumes, and it's hundreds of people bowling throughout the entire day. So I just encourage people to possibly register a team with us. $100 sounds like a lot, but generally speaking, I'm sure that there's a way to raise that within your family community or friend community, and it makes a huge difference. All of the proceeds go directly to helping matches in the community. So
Frankie,
please reach out to us with this.
Businesses can do that too, right? I mean, they can create their own teams.
Businesses can make teams. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Businesses can create teams. So you can do that for all of our fundraisers, and we do encourage businesses to sponsor. We have a great sponsorship community in Santa Fe. Obviously, we would love to grow it across the mountain region. We have great sponsors across the mountain region, to be clear, but we're always looking for more. Bowl for Kids is coming up in April. We'll have Drive for Matches, which is our golf tournament, in Los Alamos, probably in August. So you can look ahead at that. And if you want any information about that, you can always call our office and we can provide more. The last thing that I'll leave everyone with is, I just can't stress enough how important it is that we have volunteers from our community that are adults. I know that there's plenty of reasons to have reservations about whether or not you would be a positive role model in a child's life. I can guarantee that every single person that would listen to this, themselves or knows somebody that can make that difference in a child's life, for just a few hours a month. And that it might sound like a sacrifice of time or a sacrifice of resources, but it's an investment in your community, and it's an investment in an individual, and it's an investment in yourself. So I just implore people to consider becoming a big. I encourage families to sign their children up to become littles, and I encourage us all to bridge gaps in our community and to become stronger in northern, southern, and western New Mexico.
Thank you, Frankie, for your time. It was just an
Thank you
honor
very
to
much.
speak with you. And they can go to the website also to find out some of the fundraising that's going
Yes,
on.
bbbsmountainregion.org is our website.
Okay.
Or you can just Google Big Brothers Big
Big Brothers,
Sisters
Big
of Santa Fe or
Okay.
Mountain Region, and it will
Thank
show
you.
up.
Thank you, Frankie.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is Creating Community. My name is Eileen Richardson. I hope to see you back again next time. Bye.